Hello and welcome to episode 589 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Join me as always is the glorious LeagueFreak. You can also find on Twitter at LeagueFreak. How you going there, mate?
Going well, Andrew. How are you?
I'm going, I would say similarly well.
Yep.
But I mean, I'm not as wealthy as you.
What, I'm wealthy?
Or as tall or as good looking. So I can't, I mean, I'd be lying.
They sound like backhanded comments. They sound like backhanded comments. You know how you know I'm not wealthy?
You're podcasting?
No, not just that. I was going to say they're called the Cronulla Sharks, still not the Christchurch Sharks.
Oh boy. It's been a big week.
Yeah, especially for the Dragons, hey?
It has indeed.
Mm.
We're going to dive into all of that, but first, the most important part of the show.
We got an email. Yeah, we got an email. We got an email from Glenn. Everyone knows Glenn.
He's fast becoming our unofficial fourth member.
He is, yeah. So the subject is Munster. The message. G'day, Fergo and the Freak. I hear all the time that over an off-season, a half can lose a bit of pace and look slow all of a sudden. I'm guessing he means a kind of an older half.
Yeah.
Do you think this has happened to Cameron Munster? From what I've seen, from what I've seen this season, he doesn't seem himself. Mind you, he's more than likely going to make me eat my words this weekend. So that's the first part of his email. So I think Cameron Munster, he's not playing well. I don't think it's an aging thing yet, though.
No, there's parts of his game which have dropped off. Okay. And I don't think I'm with you. I don't think it's an age thing. I don't think he's got slower or anything like that. There's things that I think where the application isn't quite as intense as it used to be. And the main one I'm talking about there is his defense.
Yeah.
He was always had a very good defensive technique. He, would always lead with his shoulders. And I've seen the last few weeks, he's getting very grabby.
Yeah, as are a lot of the Storm players. And I guess the other thing is too, like, because the Storm are getting so dominated in every game, he's not able to run off the back of a play the ball where they've got an advantage. So his running game is also not as good. And when you add those two things together, he's playing pretty average, And when you look at the Storm, like Hughes is still playing pretty well, and Harry Grant's played at times great this season. But against some better teams, he's been shut down a little bit. But I think it's just the Storm are not a very good team this year.
Yeah, and the pack's not great. And so what they're getting with that is as soon as they get, the opposition puts a really good physical defensive set on them and hem them in their own half, they kind of get bogged there.
Yeah.
And what you kind of, what a lot of teams are doing now, not just the Storm, is that when they get pounded down for a one set in defense, they just try and, ruck run it out. There's just a bunch of hit ups to get out of it and then hope that they can get one or two good quick play the balls to get a few extra meters on a run to just sort of get that territory back.
Yeah.
And so you find that the halves are getting less ball because of that. And that means that a lot of the times when Munster's getting the ball now, he's getting it at a time when the Storm aren't really in prime attacking position. So he's trying to create something from further back, which means he's taking on the line a lot more. He's running the ball a lot more. But because he doesn't have the elite quality all around him that he typically has had in the past, because the Storm side this year is a lot lower in quality, I think it's fair to say. He doesn't have players going with him as often. So a lot of the times he's taken that run to the line looking for a support player and they're just not there. So he gets caught with the ball and typically mid to late of a set. So he's not there for the important last one or two tackles of the set. But He needs to do that because otherwise it's just another hit up, which just gets after a while very easy to defend.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're playing like the Dragons.
Exactly.
On to the rest of his email. He says, this is Glenn, Parramatta, WTF. After this weekend, I might as well give up making tips for the footy tipping comps and just toss a coin. I actually tweeted that the last 2 weeks the rugby league gods just decided to humble every single team except the Warriors. The Warriors won both games. But yeah, the last 2 weeks, it's like every team that thought they were flying high, they have had some sort of terrible loss.
Yeah.
And as such, Parramatta on the weekend, they put it on the Bulldogs, and I don't think anyone saw that coming.
I mean, can we say that it's not that surprising though? Like, do we genuinely believe, based on what we've seen so far this year, and at the tail end of last year, actually more close to like the last half of last year, that the Bulldogs are a legit top side?
I think that they're a top 6 side just based on some sort of consistency that you'd hope that they'd have, which is probably based on their early season last year. But coming off the back of that big win over Penrith, you would have thought that they'd handled the Eels very easily, and the Eels handled them easily at the end of the day.
I think we've seen so far this year that there's very little between the Bulldogs and Parramatta.
Well, I think that there's little between, probably take Penrith out of it, from second to man, it might be 15th or something. There's very little between any of the teams.
I think, though, we've got a few teams that are in the top 5 at the moment. They're showing better consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think the Bulldogs haven't been shown that consistency, just like Parramatta haven't. On paper, the Bulldogs are a much better side. But performance-wise on the field, there's a lot of teams all performing very similarly. Like Bulldogs, Parramatta, Melbourne at the moment. If you look at their entire season, you go, yeah, they are kind of all about the same. They've had a few good wins. They've had a bunch of disappointing ones and just a random hot performance here or there. And I don't know. I think that's just what's happened at the moment with the game is if you're inconsistent, you're part of the larger group. And they're all going to be fighting for the, bottom 3 or 4 places in the top 8 probably by the end of the year.
Yeah. I think that, when we get to the last 3 weeks, it's going to be ridiculous how many teams can make the top 8. And I think it'll be ridiculous how you could have 2 weeks and go from, say, 5th to 12th.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. On to the next part. He says, thanks for the story on Dally M. I do have his book, but have forgotten so much of it. Might be time for another read. So that was a cool little story he told us about Dally M playing reserve grade. It wasn't under an assumed name, was it? It was just...
No, he played under his name.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was his first official game of rugby league in Australia was in reserve grade after having played on a massive tour for New Zealand in England for, 8 months before it. So he's obviously the most experienced and skilled and talented rugby league player in all of Australia, and yet his first game was in reserve grade.
It's pretty funny, eh? That reminds me, I saw a tweet this week where there was a Roosters fan asked whether James Tedesco was the best Rooster of all time, and I couldn't even do a proper reply to it. I was just like, my goodness.
No, look, I do very, very much enjoy watching James Tedesco play, and I do have my opinion of him. I think he is one of the best fullbacks the game has seen. Is he the best? No. He's not the best fullback we've had. But he's going to be up there, and he will long be remembered as one of the better half fullbacks we've had in the game's history.
Is he? If you had to take him at his prime or Anthony Minicello at his prime, who would you take?
I don't know there's much difference between those two players.
I think I'd take Minicello, hey.
In his prime, probably. I think Tedesco has had more years, playing good football than what Minicello did.
Yep, definitely, 100%.
And I think that's part of what is the difference between what separates a great from, a pretty good player.
A very good player, yeah. Well, one of the things that this Roosters fan, not that one, but somebody else said was like, they said, he's definitely the best in the NRL era. And I was like, well, there is no NRL era. And there was a guy called Bradley Fittler who was a pretty good player too. And
let's assume, the NRL era, okay, we're going to assume that they're talking about since 1998. And that's because that's where most people talking about the game nowadays, that's what they remember.
Because they're stupid.
Yeah.
They don't research anything. They don't read. Anybody that says NRL era doesn't know how to fucking read.
I will say that since 1998, and I'm just going to rattle a few names off here that probably will never be beaten for, regards for the best of all time, that sort of thing.
Are you talking about Roosters players, though?
I'm talking about the only players that should be in this conversation, and that is Darren Lockyer, Cameron Smith.
But we're just talking about Roosters players. They were just talking about Roosters players.
Roosters players. Well, yeah. I'm talking about. Yeah. Didn't they say that they're talking about one of the best players in the NRL era? I thought they were talking about all players.
No, I think that they just meant the Roosters players of the NRL era. Because I said about Brad Fittler, and they said somebody, and I don't know if it was the original poster, but somebody said, well, he's better than Brad Fittler was. And one of my followers just lit up the fucking thing about Brad Fittler's resume. And it's not even close, which is fine.
See,
it's Brad Fittler,
This is the thing I find fascinating is, in my opinion, I think people are starting to go very quiet on what Brad Fittler achieved. I think he's starting to become quite underrated because that guy was a phenomenal footballer.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I used to keep saying all the time that he should be one of those players that is constantly being considered, as one of the future immortals.
Mm.
People just sit there going, nah. I'm like, are you serious? Like he was elite in his debut season as a teenager, as a centre. He then became an elite 5'8" and then an elite lock.
Yeah, I mean, he won how many 2 World Cups?
Yeah, and at a time when all 3 positions evolved a few times over.
Yeah, and all 3 positions had great players in them too.
Yeah,
and won a premiership at 2 different clubs. He was the first pick for State of Origin for a decade. There's so much to go. Like, we don't have to talk about how good Brad Fittler was. It just speaks for itself. But yeah, it's look, I'll read a lot of things in regards to rugby league history from people that should not be talking about rugby league history. At the very least, if they want to talk about it, they should look things up, like you and I used to do. Like, if we were thinking like, I wonder where this player sort of stands in rugby league history, we would grab some books or later on look online and research it and see where they stood,
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of people now that they don't do that. And you see people saying, he's one of the greatest of all time. And it's like, he's not even in the fucking conversation.
See, maybe you need to create a rugby league history or record keeping website, and then people got somewhere to go to do all this research.
I could do that. I tell you, one of the ones that stood out for me, and I talked about it this week, was Mitch Moses. And you keep hearing Mitch Moses, a great halfback. And then you look at what he's actually done in his career and his winning percentage, and it's not a winning percentage. And you line it up against the other halfbacks, and it's like he's just not rated. He doesn't rate. And at some point, you are what you are. Like, you can't keep saying, yeah, but, it's like, no, at some point you're not. And I'm very comfortable to say Mitch Moses isn't. And because everything backs me up.
Yeah, it took me a long time to be convinced that Mitch Moses was a decent footballer worthy of rep duties.
Mm.
And I think a lot of it was because there were pretty good options constantly around all the time for that sort of stuff. But, and I will defend him a little bit, he has been able to maintain a pretty consistent level of form as he's got older. Some players tend to drop off as they age, especially in the halves. He hasn't dropped off too severely. However, I don't think his ceiling was all that high.
No.
And I think we probably could have seen better out of him. And this is blue sky thinking right now. If when he first came through at the Tigers, he had a decent coach and he was playing at 5'8", he was playing at halfback with Luke Brooks as his 5'8", and they both had a proper coach who knew how to develop the good amount of skill they both had at the time. They, imagine if they had have come through like that and they were at the Melbourne Storm. They would have been a hell of a lot more than what they are now. And they're both a victim of bad coaching, bad development. And then, I don't know, maybe I don't know them personally, but maybe there's this idea inside their heads that they are as good as what their paycheck suggests they are.
100%. You can tell it with him.
Yeah. And I just think that they both have a good range of skills and a lot of very good skills. But there's a lot of things that you can't have just automatically. There's things you just have to learn while playing the game or having good guidance and leadership around you.
They
missed out on that bit, which is important because, especially for Brooks, it was as a halfback, he doesn't know how to organise. I mean, if you can't organise, it doesn't matter what skills you got. You're not going to be elite.
Mitch Moses is a more consistent version of Leo Denver.
That's fair. I was going to say he's a more consistent, reliable version of Luke Brooks.
Brooks is consistent, but it sucks. Consistently sucks. You love Luke Brooks.
No, it's not that I love him. I think people get caught up in how abysmal he is at running a team because he is. And they think that he's just shit at every single thing. No, he's better than Cole Flanagan.
Oh, well, I'm better than Cole Flanagan.
Yeah, but Cole Flanagan should be your benchmark for what a poor halfback looks like.
But he's the benchmark
Luke Brooks does have skills. He can't organise, and because he can't organise, it means that he doesn't know what play to run and when to run it. So he looks atrocious. Does he have a shit kicking game? No, his kicking game's fine. He's good at finding intercepts, and he's got a good pace about him. He's able to take on the line. He doesn't hide from that. He's a pretty good defender for his size. He doesn't hide away from that. But he doesn't know when to run. He doesn't know when to pass. He doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't know how to organise stuff. And so he's just a handy centre in a halfback's body who can't play halfback. That's what he is.
That is the most West Tigers play you've ever
Exactly
described.
Right. And that's because didn't get proper development, didn't get proper training, and was put in the wrong position too early. Like everything about the way he came through the game was detrimental to him. And he stayed at the club thinking that was going to help him out. And all it did was just make things worse. And to the point where he couldn't be fixed. Flanagan had the decision to stay with, a better performing club, and then went to a poor performing one, and then went to a poorer performing one. He made decisions to make himself worse, and that's what he became. He's a victim of his own decisions.
But here's the thing. At some point, as a halfback, if your club performs poorly over a certain amount of time, it's you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, so the last part of Glenn's email.
See, I like to think I'm being a realist about Luke Brooks, because I don't think I was being unreasonable there in saying that he does have skills. But the things that he lacks are so integral to what a halfback needs. It just completely wipes out the skills that he does have.
I think I said it on the podcast the day where I was completely out on Luke Brooks, hey? Pretty sure it did. So this is back to Glenn's email. If there's
how long's this bloody email?
It's not that long. If there are servicemen and women listening, thank you. Enjoy Anzac Day. To the rest of us, get up and do a dawn service. It's a small sacrifice to make to those that have given their lives to the country. Cheers, Glenn. P.S. Here is a list of substances Paul Gallen... I can't read that, Glenn.
How does he get the toxicology report?
I don't know. It's pretty full on when Glenn says stuff like that. I don't read it all. I just shouldn't have read that part. But
if he keeps that going, he should become a journalist.
Yeah.
I will say, here on the Anzac Day stuff.
Yes.
If you're interested, and I suggest you sure should be, go to Google and type in headgear to helmets NRL, and you will see a phenomenal video that the late Terry Williams had created many years ago about men who served in World War One who were rugby league players, not just the superstars either. You had people who were playing in rural parts of Queensland and stuff like that. And it's a magnificent tribute to all of those players, and it gives you a bit of an idea as to how, I suppose for a long time there was this attitude that was peddled in the media, and a lot of it came through rugby union ranks as well as, the rugby league players chose to be professionals and stay home and play for money instead of go over and fight for their country. And that's a horrible narrative that has no substance of fact to it. And that documentary that Terry made is a good example of just a small number of the men who left Australia to go over and fight in the war, many of whom never came home.
Yeah, everyone should watch that, as it's very good. It's Anzac Day coming up, and look, I personally wouldn't have football on. We've talked about this a million times. Anzac Day, I wouldn't have football on, and I also wouldn't have all of these fucking jerseys. I think it cheapens. I think what it is it's opportunistic.
It's opportunistic, and the thing that I don't like is that from Thursday all the way through this week, we're going to hear the last post 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great piece of music commemorating a very, very important thing, and it feels opportunistic, and I'm not a fan of that. I don't mind if they play it on the games that are played on Anzac Day, if they have to play games on Anzac Day, which they don't, but if that's what they choose to do, only play it on that day. You know what? If you want the whole of the game to be visible and commemorating it, then every player in attendance should be at those games, have one game on. All the players come in. This is a bit of old school stuff. Have a parade. They do a whole lap of the ground or something like that, and they can wear their team colours or whatever, and they can do a guard of honour for some servicemen, that sort of thing. If you're going to do this thing, make it look like it's legit and you genuinely mean it. Don't make it look like some opportunistic thing to shift some gear, because that's how it looks at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Now, a little bit happened at the Dragons this week.
It has. It feels like, I don't know. Shall we say, with 100% confidence, you're welcome, Dragons fans. Because we did go on quite a bit of a tirade about Shane Flanagan last week.
Mm-hmm. Rightfully
so. And just, was it a day ago? He got sacked by the club as the coach.
Yeah, a few days now. To be fair, ever since we started this podcast, anytime Shane Flanagan's name comes up, we go on a tirade.
Yes.
So
he's at least he left on better terms than the last time he was a coach.
Yeah, that whole life ban was a weird way to go out at the Granola Sharks for being part of breaking the salary cap and the systematic use of substances that Asada was not happy with, and then while he was banned, to be dealing with football club issues against his ban that resulted in a life ban. Yeah, it was a whole lot of stuff. It was a bad look, Andrew.
It's a bad look, but it wasn't his go, I'm sure.
He's a good bloke.
He's a good bloke. Can't coach. Good bloke. Probably not a good
coach
bloke.
For shit.
Also going with him is his high profile / former co-commentator Michael Ennis.
Yeah, with Dean Young taking over the interim coaching job again.
Yes.
Because Dean Young can just work at the Dragons forever. It's great. And the first thing that Dean Young did was get rid of Michael Ennis, which is kind of... I think that, look, I said that Michael Ennis left and he had to leave after he didn't get the job, right?
Yeah.
And people thought that was an endorsement of Michael Ennis. I don't know if Michael Ennis is a good coach or not. If I had to put
I will get to that, but continue.
Okay, but if I had to put money on Michael Ennis being a good top head coach or not, I'd put my money against it. But I would put my money against everyone and be right most of the time, right? So and he left, and I thought he was going to get the job, but he didn't. They gave it to Dean Young, and I thought it was a pretty underhanded thing to do. That the first move that Dean Young decides to make is to get rid of Michael Ennis. I thought it was weird.
See, to me, it makes sense because Michael Ennis was the attack coach.
Yep.
And the Dragons don't know how to score points. So to me, it feels like that needed to go.
But Dean Young was part of the coaching staff too.
He was, yes.
So what the fuck was his role in it?
Who knows?
The thing about the Dragons, right?
But Dean Young didn't get to decide that Dean Young got made the interim coach, though.
Oh, look, and that goes into the fucking club being so bad at making decisions, right?
Yes.
The Dragons' attack is terrible, but they make up with it by not being able to defend. So anybody within that coaching staff is not good, like the way I see it.
Agreed.
And I just think that anybody that needs to be there they can't be there beyond this year at all.
Anyone involved, anyone complicit in this downward spiral that's caused this club to be this dire. If there's anyone in that club who pursued Flanagan in the first place, a banned coach, and moved hell or high water to get him to come and be a coach, needs to also step down or be sacked. Because you shouldn't have hired him in the first place. He was banned for life for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
That is diabolical to hire him in the first place. And you reap what you sow. Okay? He was never a good coach. I went through this last time. Take all of the off-field stuff out of it. Well, it went on-field as well. But, take the illegal stuff out of it and just deal with strategy-wise. As a coach, he's dreadful in everything. Sometimes, if he gets the right players, he can build a good defensive system, but he's never been good at coaching attack. Never. And at the moment, he's built a club that can't defend, and because he doesn't know how to get an attacking unit in there, he's got some decent attackers in there, but he doesn't have anyone at the 7 jumper who knows how to be a fucking halfback. Because, nepotism.
Yeah.
And it was just the dumbest of things. I look at it and I go, is there parallels between this and the way the Tigers were run during their salary cap period? Or are the Dragons worse? Because at least the Tigers were trying to get legit coaches who had success. Just everything else about the club was a basket case. But the Dragons they've fast trying to go, let's see if we can out-West Tigers the Tigers when they were winning wooden spoons. I was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's strange to see them make poor decision after poor decision after poor decision, and then with Manly, everything compounds itself at that point. There was a lot of talk over the last couple of weeks about how the joint ventures have really struggled with decision making, and I think that that's fair. I thought that the Dragon situation would improve when they got some private ownership involved, but it hasn't. And it just makes you wonder, like, these joint venture clubs, you can't be a joint venture. You need one direction. And if you don't have one direction, it's just never going to work. And, I
See,
think
the
that
thing,
you see it with both.
I don't know if we could say it's the joint venture thing anymore, because I think in the last few years we've seen that West Ashfield basically runs the whole West Tigers now. And St. George is basically in charge of the Dragons.
Yeah, but there's always some sort of tension.
There will be, but so long as
there's
one entity that's got more power and say than the other, and that is definitely at play in both of them.
But if you line up if you just line up what happens at the joint venture board levels, and you line it up against what happens at, say, the Broncos or the Panthers. Like, you go to the Broncos and Panthers, they're all pulling in one direction. If you go to the joint venture clubs and you put a few beers into them and said, what would you really like to happen? No doubt both of them would say, we'd like to split this joint venture and go our own way. No doubt.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that's a coincidence, because, we go back 15 years and the Dragons were first on the ladder and the Tigers were third. I think since then they've got more and more. Both of them have got more and more heavily on one entity being in charge than what they had back then. I just think it's just poor management. I don't think it's the joint venture thing so much. I think it's just poor people employed who weren't good at what they do. I mean, you look at who the Tigers appointed as their CEO for age, and it was a bloke who did marketing at the Panthers. You saw how quickly it took.
Name? Yeah, what was his name?
Justin Pascoe.
Oh, Pascoe, yeah.
And you saw how quickly the club improved the minute they put Shane Richardson, a former club CEO, in there. Like, what's happening now is because of the work he did. And it didn't take 10 years to sort it out. He was there for, 2.5 seasons?
Yeah.
Bam. Instant improvement. And this is the problem they've got, is that if you keep hiring bad operators, you're going to get bad performance in every aspect of what you do. And we're seeing it at clubs that aren't mergers. Like, how long have the Titans and the Knights been struggling for?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think it's bad hiring. It's bad management, and people trying to find cheap hires, or they're trying to find, that diamond in the rough, when, what? Just go get the people who know what the fuck they're doing and put them there, and you'll get success. That's how it works.
Remember when the West Tigers had somebody in charge that just liked having morning teas? That was a fun moment.
Yeah, that was after they had the bloke who did some low-level job at Manly, who didn't know how to handle crises between the media and Mick Potter, and just kept throwing Robbie Farah under the bus.
Yeah, and
Farah ended up having to do all the CEO work on the field.
He ended up going to one of the AFL clubs, and he wasn't there for very long, I don't think. But yeah. So hopefully, look, and Kyle Flanagan's already been dropped for this upcoming game, which is that he needs to be, they've got a contract with him, but he needs to be basically contracted to play, reserve grade at the very best. And I'd have him on the bench in reserve grade, because I want to see what other halves are coming through.
The club needs to just let him go. Even take the risk of injuries and stuff. You can't have him in first grade anymore.
Just pay out his contract.
Yep, just pay it out and get rid of him.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that too. But if Dean Young is there beyond this year, it doesn't matter. The problems are all still there. And I'm not saying it's all just Dean Young, but it just shows that the club needs a full change. And they need somebody that's not one of the old boys. They need somebody that's not this fucking whole thing of we need one of our guys to come in because they know the fabric of our club and they know how things work. And it's fucking as soon as you start sniffing your own farts, that's when your club goes downhill. And it happens every single time.
It's so true, though. It's 100% spot on.
We need someone at the Knights that knows the area. No, you fucking don't. Fucking idiots.
Huff that shit in. Huff it in hard.
That's so stupid.
Yeah.
We need someone at the Broncos that's part of the fabric of the club. Oh, look, Michael Maguire just won us a premiership. It's just over and over again. And these fucking dumbasses.
Yeah.
They keep going back to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at the clubs that have been, largely consistent in the last 5-10 years.
Mm.
And most of them have got people who weren't really what you consider, loyal players to the club when they were younger or, even played at the club. You look at Craig Fitzgibbon, never played for the Sharks.
Mm-hmm.
Ivan Cleary,
mm-hmm.
largely seen as a Roosters and Warriors player.
North Sydney player too.
North Sydney.
Lives over in North Sydney.
Yeah. Maguire again, he played for like a ton of clubs, Dragons, Canberra, but he was just a bit part player everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It should be enough when you can point out three. Craig Bellamy, another one, just played at Canberra.
Yep.
If you can point out just 3 or 4 of them and just go, yeah, you know what? There's your evidence. We've already looked at a quarter of the teams that are competing, basically. You don't need to get someone who's from your club.
Even more than that, you don't want someone or the only thing they really know is your club, because then you're not getting any new ideas. They only know one way. You know, they only know what they've been involved in. It freaks me out when I see like a club have a CEO and it's like a former player too. When I see that, I'm like, oh man, this is insane.
It feels
like,
bad.
In the whole on planet Earth, you got a guy that used to play for your club. My goodness.
Yeah. Now, we did mention before Michael Ennis getting the boot to the date.
Yep.
I went through and did a bit of looking around at his coaching resume to see how impressive it was, because he seems to keep landing these jobs at different clubs, and I went, he must be impressive.
Yeah.
And we see he positions himself as the analyst on Fox Sports.
Yeah.
You're going, okay, he's an analyst. He's
can
smart.
I say he's really, really good at it?
Really good at putting the letter I next to the letter O in nearly every word he says.
Every single time.
Really.
Every single game. It's a fucking ambush.
It's an ambush.
It's an ambush.
So his first gig was in 2019 when Ricky Stewart hired him to be a coaching consultant for the Raiders spine, focusing specifically on the hookers. And the hooker at that time was Josh Hodgson, who was basically in the prime of his career.
Yeah.
Whatever you think about Josh Hodgson, he had 2 or 3 really good seasons at the Raiders. So it's hardly a tough assignment for a coach to come in, or one where you can come in and have your impact visible or noticeable when you're coaching a bloke who's probably, I don't know, you could probably regard Hodgson as, if not similar, maybe a better hooker than Ennis ever was.
Oh, fuck no.
Yeah.
Fuck no.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Yeah, Ennis was overrated as hell.
No, Ennis was just a so-so hooker. That's still better than Hodgson.
No, when Hodgson was that, no, I'm talking about in this period, 2017, 18, 19, that's when Hodgson was at his absolute best.
I would take
Ennis's worst
Hodgson
at his best was, as I said, at least equal to Ennis. Ennis was a plotter.
Ennis was a plotter. I think Ennis was a better hooker.
Nah.
100%.
Nah. I never saw Ennis set up anything. Nothing. Ennis is the Kyle Flanagan of hookers.
No, fuck. He wasn't that bad. That's
anyway.
Terrible. You can't say that.
He was out of the coaching scene for 2 years after that. So he was only there for 1 season. And then he got a coaching consultant gig alongside Paul McGregor at Parramatta.
Mm-hmm.
Why did Parramatta hire Paul McGregor for anything after what he did at the Dragons?
Parramatta.
But at the same time, the Eels had made the finals for the 3 years prior to 2022. They reached the grand final that year and lost. But what have they done since? They've been in the complete finals wilderness.
Yeah.
Not really setting a good scene here for him. He went to Cronulla the following year to focus on juniors and recruitment. The Sharks recruited basically 2 or 3 depth players. And I think they saw 1 or 2 juniors make their debuts who barely, if at all, have been seen since.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. He then went and spent 2 years as a spine coach at Manly under Anthony Seibold. They reached the finals in 2024, his first year there, and then last year missed the finals on the back of the fact their attack scored over 100 points less than they did the previous year. And they lost their halfback, Daly Cherry Evans. And then this year he went to the Dragons and became their attack coach, and they have been the worst attacking team in the competition comfortably. So I would like to say that as a coach, he's an absolute charlatan. So I'm not surprised. That's the one good decision the Dragons made, was to not appoint him as a head coach, because I don't think there's anything that he's done in his coaching resume so far that screams that he can make a big change, which is what the club needs. He probably just keeps things going as they are, because that looks like that's all he's ever done at best at these other coaching gigs.
Yeah, well, like we've both said many times before, you don't know how somebody's going to go as a head coach until they're a head coach, because it's such a weird job, you know. I just am always skeptical when I see people in the media start saying this guy's the next head coach at some club.
That's like, because we are both cynics of everything the mainstream media says.
100%.
They are running legit agendas the whole time.
Yeah, and like, have you ever seen somebody say he's the next great head coach that actually look at and you're like, oh, they really were the next great head coach? I also think it's weird when, like, I don't know why clubs do this, but anybody that's been an assistant at the Sydney Roosters and they think that for some reason that is going to make somebody a good head coach, and it's like, how many more chances do these assistants at the Sydney Roosters need? It's fucking weird, man.
I don't know. There's still this weird aura around Trent Robinson,
and I don't understand it whatsoever.
It's the same aura that is legitimately around Craig Bellamy and Wayne Benjamin. That is, you know, a lot of good NRL coaches started out as assistant coaches to Bellamy or Bennett, and that was initially proven to be true, but over time, I think some of those newer assistant coaches have come along thinking, oh, if every other assistant coach before me went on to be greatness, I will too. And so they jump at every head coaching opportunity that comes their way before they're ready for it. You think Stephen Kearney, good example.
Mm-hmm.
And they just jump into one of those roles straight away going, oh, yeah, well, I was an understudy to Craig Bellamy for 17 seconds, so, you know, I'll be awesome. It's like the ones that were awesome were the ones who were there for quite a few years and they learnt that stuff properly. They didn't turn up and, you know, wash some of the players' jumpers for a week or two and think that they could coach.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's happened is there's this, it's around Robinson for some reason now.
Yeah, it's very strange. And like when you look at the assistants that he's had at under him and what they've gone on to do, and then you look at, say, Ivan Cleary, who's quietly starting to build a pretty good stable of former coaches under him that have gone on to do things pretty well at other clubs. And it's interesting to look at. I don't think Robinson is that great of a coach. I think he's all right, but he's not one of the great coaches in the game.
I think what he is I think he's good at understanding roster management better than most coaches. But as far as tactics and, you know, plays and stuff like that, I don't think he's very good.
He can't make an adjustment to save his life in a game. If a game is going against like what the Roosters wanted it to be going in, there's no adjustment there in the game plan.
And I think that comes down to what I was saying. Like he knows what works, and when he sees it works, he's gone, right, that's it. That's the only plan we're going to use because it's worked. And when the game changes, he doesn't. And that's what we saw last year when the set restart started being a little bit inconsistent with how they were applied. He was a bit inconsistent about performance-wise and, you know, how we go with it. And they've been a bit inconsistent as well this year. Every time there's a little or a tweak to the rules that ends up being a massive ripple, he struggles to adapt to it quickly. The thing that usually adapts is the players first, then him afterwards. And that's not entirely a great thing. And I think the only coach that's come out of it who's had a decent career thus far has been Fitzgibbon.
Yeah, and I mean, the Sharks haven't won anything yet either.
No, that's right. But I mean,
he's the best. You know,
but I mean, he hasn't gone and had a season where they've been like sitting at the bottom end of the ladder and looking like shit. Like his recruitment's been pretty solid. He hasn't had a lot of churn. He's been able to keep the team pretty happy, and they're a consistent performing side. But yeah, hasn't got any big achievements yet, but also hasn't been atrocious either.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that's the
that's what I'm
mark.
saying. Like that's your mark of your best assistant coach going on to be a head coach.
It's rough.
Yeah. So I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I think the thing to remember sometimes about rugby league is that there are a lot of people within rugby league management that are former rugby league players, and rugby league players aren't always, and like some of them are, but they're not always the smartest people in the world. And you can convince them of things, you know. And sometimes I think they listen to what some consensus is on certain subjects. And that's why you can get like that fucking rugby union player all of a sudden who can't defend, who has hands like dicks, all of a sudden is in the Australian team because there's so many people that are excited about him. And so all of a sudden he's in the Australian team. You're like, what the fuck? There's like 20 better wingers than him we could have selected, because he's like, people talk about him and they're like, oh my God, he's great. He's great. It's like, you should watch this guy for 5 minutes instead of just following the consensus.
I think it's more just because they like saying his surname.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Marjolais. It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, yeah. So well, look, the Dragons, the rest of the season's gonna suck. But as long as they get as many juniors playing in these first grade games, because they're going to lose anyway, see what they've got.
Yeah.
Get a good coach for next year. Get rid of Dean Young. Do a full clean out, and hopefully start fresh and see how that goes.
Hire some new people running the club too.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how much of a difference it makes. Having been, a West Tigers fan, and you can go through the, 4 years of podcast episodes, you can see just how much of a difference having a good operator is. And look, Richardson's free. We've done you a solid, Dragons. Fucking give him a call. He'll do for you what he did for us.
Yeah, might as well. I can't go any worse.
No. And look, if you need to, I can create a record for him on Rugby League Project that says that he played like 3 games in reserve grade for St. George. If that helps you sign him, I can do that to help you out, okay?
I had some idiot on Twitter this week, and I said the Dragons shouldn't sign anyone that's a former player or anything like that. And they said, oh, well, Shane Flanagan had nothing to do with the club. So I pointed out that he'd played all of his lower grade football at the Dragons.
Yeah, he only had like 1 or 2 seasons, I think, at the Magpies and 1 at Parramatta or something like that.
Yeah, and he played 3 first grade games at the Dragons. Well, that's not a fucking... It's like, oh my God, why am I fucking arguing with idiots on Twitter? It's like, what the hell?
You love it.
I don't. I fucking hate it. But we'll get into that soon.
Yes. All right. Now, England.
Oh my God, we're going to do it now, are we?
We should do it now. I think now that you're warmed up.
Well...
What's been going on over in jolly England town? I'm just going to have a break. I might even just go outside and, go grab a pie and let you take over.
Look, Andrew Abdo flew over.
Mm-hmm.
Started talking with the stakeholders. Started talking with Sky Sports. Just starting to talk to people.
Just chats.
So just chats. So they had him on Sky Sports and suggested that Australians are arrogant to him. We're being arrogant going over there. And it's like, we have this big bag of money, right? And we're here and we're saying, we know yous aren't doing well. We got this really big bag of money. It's our money. We earned it. We earned it back in Australia. But we're going to take this big bag of money and we're willing to spend it here. What have you got to say about that? You're arrogant. These fucking people.
You're just after our riches.
What they really want is for us to put the bag of money down and walk away and never come back. That's what they want, right? And that's not going to happen. Now, I had discussions this week on Twitter where I said that what I've been saying for so long is that there needs to be from a ground up changing of rugby league in the UK. We are experts at rugby league. We have a proven track record in rugby league.
An expertise almost.
For well over a century. If there's one group of people on planet Earth that knows how to make rugby league successful, it is people in Australia, right? That's not enough for them. Because apparently there's nothing that we know about what's going on over there. And when you say, well, we do actually know a bit about what's happening in rugby league because we're experts in rugby league. They say, oh, yeah, but soccer. It's like, yeah, soccer's big, but we know how to make rugby league work. And they're like, oh, you don't? How can you know? Because rugby league, there's only 3 sports in Australia. You've got no other competition. So I looked it up. I do this weird thing where I fucking invest time to know what I'm talking about.
Typical journalist.
How dare you? It didn't take very long. I put into Google, where does Australia rank in terms of sporting attendance per capita? And we're second in the whole world. Behind the UK, right?
Oh, there you go.
Okay. We're ahead of the United States and all these other countries. Second behind the UK. So we understand how to draw people to rugby league in a very, very competitive but small market, relatively small market in Australia.
And very widely spread market. Let's not forget that. Australia is vastly bigger than England.
We will get to that. And here's the reply. Oh, yeah, but you don't have another big competitor like we do in Premier League clubs. I did some more research. That's really weird. I just looked it up. Turns out that the AFL only averages 2,000 or 3,000 less people per match than Premier League clubs do. So it turns out we do have a competitor that's very big, right?
Mm-hmm.
That still wasn't enough. Then they were like, well, what about all the lower league clubs? And it's like, yeah, but what you're missing out is that on a per capita basis, Australia has the second highest attendance for sport in the entire world. There is so much to do. And they were like, oh, yeah, but you've only got these few sports. It's like, have you ever met an Australian? Do you know what Australia is? You know all them times that you run out in the sporting field and we whip the shit out of your guys or girls? That's because Australia's really good at all these fucking sports. Do you think that we pick them up on the weekend before we're supposed to play? Like, there's so many things to do. Do you reckon that there are many surf life-saving carnivals in the UK that they're trying to go against? You know? It's crazy. So,
can I just add to that?
Yeah.
In the 90s when I was a young fella, not my youngest fella, that was in the, 1870s.
Back during the Blitz.
Yeah. But in the 90s, I lived in a very small rural town. I was still able to play cricket, rep cricket, do cricket training, play golf. This is all in the space of a week. Tennis, squash, basketball, and touch footy. Like, they were competitions, not just fucking around with mates. They were all competitions I played in every week. So, and that's in a tiny country town. There's like 140 people lived there at the time. Yeah. That was all available. So this is the point that you're trying to make, is that what we do is play sport.
Yes. And we
play all of the sports, so we're actually skilled at playing all of the sports. That's why we've got people who will go from rugby league to AFL, or they come up and they go, I don't know if I want to play in rugby league or the NFL, or if I want to go and play basketball, or if they do everything.
Yes, we have I try and find a country that has more opportunities to play sport and watch sport than we do. You know,
yeah,
we're very lucky here, and especially with the environment we've got every single sport you can do, including skiing. You know, we've got skiing world champions, for fuck's sakes, right?
I also played darts.
Well, darts isn't a sport.
It is a sport.
It's not a fucking sport, please. Darts isn't a sport. But anyway.
Hey, the Poms are good at it. We have to call it a sport to make them feel good about something.
No.
Yeah.
We don't. It's not our fucking job to make them feel good. How about that?
No, look, there's a reason, right? We've got to make them feel good that they're good at sport. Because it keeps them competing, so it keeps us allowing us to beat them all the time.
Keeps flogging them.
Because you see, I think sport for an Australian is at its most enjoyable when we're beating the Poms. And I don't know what sport it would be like if we didn't have the Poms in it for us to beat all the time. I think that'd suck a bit.
See, for me,
because America doesn't play as many of the sports that we do, so it'd suck playing them because we'd have to play them at their sports, which are pretty crap. We don't like playing those sports.
But we do. We have NFL players.
Of course we do.
We've got dozens of NBA players.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had an ice hockey player yet. We definitely have we haven't got any MLB players this year, but in the past we've had many baseball players. But going back to it, right? So, yeah, what you end up on is this treadmill, right? Mm-hmm. Of saying, we know what we're doing. We're experts. We have all of this money and we want to help. And there's always an excuse from them about why you don't know what you're doing, why you can't help. They'll take the money, thank you very much, but they want you to go away because you don't know what you're doing. Because the UK is special. It's a unique market. It's this magical, unique market that no one could ever work out, you know? They're such unique and special people. Just ask them.
Do you think there is, because we know they want help. They're always talking about how the game is struggling and they need help.
They don't need help. What they want is our money.
I know that, but I mean, I'm saying
when you work that out, then you can start really hearing what they're saying.
I know, but there are quite a few, corners of the game over there that are very well aware that the game is struggling and it needs help. And they've been open about that. And they haven't been horribly opposed to the initial talks about the NRL being involved. I was going to ask, do you think they're pushing back now because they just don't want help from Australia?
I think that they are all arrogant. They're up their own asses. They love being self-important. They love looking in the mirror and saying, you're the big guy in town. Everyone loves you. And they have been in this environment for so long that it is just normal to them. And I think that anybody that is not them, they don't like. And when I say them, I mean individually. I'm not talking about from anywhere else. I mean individually.
Okay.
I think that it doesn't matter who it is, wherever they come from, whatever they're offering, they will always turn it down, because if they need to turn over one shred of power, one little tiny bit of financial ability to control anything, one vote, or give any spotlight to anyone else, they don't want that for themselves. Because what they want to do is to walk into their local pub on the corner and people go, oh, that's that guy, which doesn't actually happen. Because the people that don't really care much about rugby league are other English people. And you can tell that by how badly it's failing right now. You know, if you look at the top 10 biggest markets in the UK and Ireland in terms of television, rugby league doesn't cover any of them except one, and that's Leeds. Okay? If you look at the biggest populations, it's just Leeds. Nowhere else. I saw a tweet this week where somebody said, we need to go and find Andrew Abdo and try and explain to him how important Widnes is to the fabric of rugby league and how it needs to be involved in any future Super League expansion.
Is that not the argument, though, that every single club is going to make?
And exactly. When you get down to it and they'll say, we need reforms. We need all sorts of things to happen. We need expansion. And then you say, well, tell me what needs to happen. And they'll tell you everything. And then you say, what about your club? And it's like, oh, yeah, our club will be there. Of course it will. Castleford's really important to the whole future of rugby league in Europe. We all know that. You know, they're all very important. Just ask them. And that's what it comes down to. If I was Andrew Abdo, I would come back on a plane. My recommendation would be we're not spending 1 cent in anything that they do over there. And if we want to have a competition in Europe, we go to France. And if we want to have a competition in the UK, we run our own competition. That's what I would do. Because trying to be involved with anybody in rugby league in the United Kingdom is just setting yourself up to be chastised and attacked and told that you don't know what you're doing, but give us your money and go away. And that's just not going to happen. And so it's all a waste of time.
I was going to say, I think the only way that this could ever possibly work, like the NRL taking over any aspect of the running of rugby league in England, because I think we can agree, like if it wants to survive and move forward, that's just going to have to be what happens. It's going to have to be very similar to what they did when Super League first began, and that is the whole process gets done in the space of a week. You just come in and you just rip the Band-Aid off and then walk away. Right, that's it, job's done, here's the cash, this is what we've got to do. And as much as the way Super League was formed and built was not perfect, it was, though, what the game needed to do. And it was trying to do what it did over here, and that is get rid of having so many teams in built-up areas and try and spread them out a little bit more, and then have more teams around the country, because at the end of the day, it is entirely about broadcasting rights. And if you've got more cities with eyeballs on the game, then that's more money you can get from the broadcasting rights. Just take a look at what the NRL is doing at the moment with their broadcasting rights and where they're expanded to. That hasn't really happened at all in England for how many decades?
Well, I tell you what, this just out of nowhere. Bring up the first season in 1895.
Okay.
Yep. And go through the clubs that are in it.
So it is worth noting that this is all the rugby union teams basically from the north part of England, because that's how it all broke apart.
Yep.
So we had 22 teams: Manningham, Halifax, Runcorn, Oldham, Brighouse Rangers, Tildesley, Hunslet, Hull, Lee, Wigan, Bradford, Leeds, Warrington, St Helens, Liversidge, Stockport, Widnes, Batley, Wakefield Trinity, Huddersfield, Broughton Rovers, Rochdale Hornets.
Wow. Haven't they done well to expand from there? You know? All the same fucking teams. And the Catalan Dragons and Toulouse, who they hate and make pay for everything beyond what they should be paying.
Well, yeah. I mean, what they're doing to the French teams is what the New South Wales Rugby League / ARL did over here to Perth in the mid-90s, and it eventually just led to the clubs being, unable to finance themselves.
Yeah,
it's just stupid. And now they're finally putting a team back there. Like, it took them 30-odd years later going, oh, we probably shouldn't have done that. We need to have a team over there. And like, yeah, you think? Think of what we could have had.
Look, English Rugby League hates the London Broncos. They hate the London Broncos.
That's why it's so important the Broncos get back to Super League and win the title next year.
But you imagine that. They hate the London Broncos. It's like, why is that? Well, they're a waste of money and time, and they've never worked, and and they've got a list. They've always got a fucking list of shit, and you can go through and debunk their lists, but it doesn't matter, because it's just a treadmill of excuses and bullshit. And it's like, at some point you just got to say, hey, cool, you do your own thing. You just keep going in the same direction you're going in. I had somebody fucking tweet me this week saying that Super League has never been in a better position than it is right now. It's like, that's fucking delusional. I had another person say, what does the NRL know about expanding a competition? You know, we've got teams in parts of Australia.
Shall we go through the teams that were playing in the NRL, the New South Wales Rugby League in 1908 then?
You know what? Just let's be really generous. Let's do it from 1980. Let's spot them. What is that? Fucking 73 years? Let's spot them 73 years.
All right.
Okay.
So 1980, we had Balmain, Canterbury, Cronulla, East, Manly, Newtown, North Sydney, Parramatta, Penrith, St George, South Sydney, and Western Suburbs.
Okay. So since then, who have we added?
Canberra and Illawarra in 82.
Yep.
Newcastle Knights, Brisbane, and Gold Coast in 1988. 1995, we put in South Queensland, North Queensland, Auckland, and Perth. 1997, we added Hunter, and 98 was Melbourne.
We also added Adelaide in 97.
Right. That's right. In 99, we merged a few teams. And then since then, we've had a new Gold Coast Titans team and a team from Brisbane added. That was the Dolphins. And we've got a team from PNG and a team from Perth being added in the short-term future.
A lot of expansion since 1980. Interesting.
And reducing the numbers of teams in Sydney, which is their market area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
I think we know something about expanding rugby league competitions over here, hey?
Yes. And it's also worth noting that we've done that while also increasing crowd figures, TV rights deals, players' wages, safety for players. So they've got, I'm not talking about safety on the field, but safety for their incomes and their rights. All of that's there as well. We did see that post by a former player over there in England to Roger Tuivasa-Sheck telling him not to go over.
Yep, we have a pension plan in place. There's a players' association that's fully funded. There's rigorous drug testing.
Yes, the clubs are fully protected.
There's education programs for young players.
Yep.
There's millions and millions and millions spent on actual junior development, not buying elite juniors, actual junior development from the first time you pick up a football.
Yeah, it's everything. It's a recognition too, though, of a player's career will end before they turn 40 most times, and that means they've got over 25 years of working life left that they have before they can actually officially retire from the workforce. So it's about making the most out of their career, trying to protect their bodies as much as possible so they can go and be, enter the workforce after football and still contribute to society that way.
It seems like we know what we're doing with rugby league over here, hey?
Look, there's an inkling of that going on, yeah.
Yeah. Imagine if we could do that elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's the greatest.
There's nowhere else that we can do that.
It's the greatest game of all. Imagine being able to do that from a position where you have bucket loads of money to do it with as well. That is not reliant on like another entity or something. It is literally from a rugby league organization whose only job is to expand rugby league. They don't. It's not a broadcaster. It's just a rugby league organization that says, this is our money, and all of this money we're going to invest it in a rugby league competition. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're experts. And we know what we're doing. And we've got a track record. Here's the track record. And we're being told we're arrogant.
Wow.
It's fucking unbelievable. And honestly, I would walk away from it. Because I know that the NRL could go to France and the French would be like, we will do whatever it takes. What do you want us to do? Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us where we need to change. France has the second biggest competition in terms of expansion across an area. Like French Rugby League actually has teams in cities.
Yes.
And they understand that you need that to have a full competition.
Plus, there's room for expansion to other countries from there. Like Spain and Germany's like next door to them.
Yep.
And they already play rugby league there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Add them in. You know, you've got Greece and Italy already playing, have been playing for several years. Serbia. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but at the same time, if the money starts coming in and starts becoming a prominent competition, you find ways to make it work.
Can you imagine if the NRL decided to have a French national rugby league competition, which is already there? So when I say this, I mean that they've invested in the French rugby league competition. But imagine if we had that competition where it was run over our summer and it was on TV, and you had the ability for those teams to get in players that maybe were fringe first graders that wanted to run, that wanted to prove themselves for the upcoming NRL season. You might have a player or two that is of higher quality that maybe they've had time off and they want to get some, their legs under them ahead of the season. Things like that. I'd watch it.
Well, similarly, you get players who are absolute elite from the French regions and they want to test themselves on the bigger stage.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's kind of what was the mentality behind the Warriors.
Yeah.
Is, if we can get our test players playing in that, prominent competition every week, might make us better on the test arena. And it did. And has continued to.
Yes. It was great for them.
On the other hand, being arrogant as you are, as an expert, right?
Yeah. But it's not just me, it's every Australian.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Is there a part of you, a small percentage of you, that goes, you know what, I do just want to, it's the same percentage that wants to buy out rugby union, I think, that wants to just go in there and say, no, you know what, I don't care what you say, I'm buying it, I'm going to do whatever I want with it anyway.
But well, as I've said, and this is the beautiful position I am personally in, if we take over, I was right.
That's right.
If we don't take over, I was right.
So that is the perfect peak of arrogance, if not, I firmly believe.
Yeah. But can you imagine, look, just say if we went to New Zealand, right, said we have a bag of money, they'd say yes. Yes, whatever you want to do, yes. Right? It is fucking insane to me that this is like there's no negotiation. What are they doing?
I mean, it's basically the whole Stobart deal all over again.
Yeah.
Just give us some trucks with Super League written on the side of them, and that'll do. Can you make them go? Fine. Can you make them drive around Australia? That might help us out a little bit.
It is mind blowing to me, and I understand. Like the only thing that's valuable over there is the television viewing audience. That's it. Another thing. Oh, they just want to turn Super League into a feeder comp for the NRL.
Isn't it already?
I mean, any player that Canberra wants, they get. And you're talking about feeder comps. How many POMs are there in the NRL? Like 8? Something like that? It's not many.
Yeah, it's not many.
Don't flatter yourself. We've got more people running around the NRL that played for St. Mary's Saints. Literally. We're not going to buy a whole fucking competition just because we want players. Ridiculous.
Some of the best post-war players, though, were born in England.
How about
Bob Fulton,
Ian Roberts. it's mind-blowing to me that they've always got an excuse as to why we're the problem and they're the solution.
Well, look, joking aside on my behalf anyway, right, I think a lot of it comes down to, not that they'll admit it, a very deep-seated fear that any change right now could be the change that makes things go worse. And I think that's at the heart of it, not that they'll admit it, but I think that's it's at the heart of anyone willing to come in and help. Because, I mean, how many times have people come along and said, oh, we'll help, we'll do this, we'll do that, and they were feeling the same way about IMG. And I think IMG had a lot of very intelligent business strategies that most were adopted and needed to in order for them to realise just how poor things were. And I think they're starting to realise that now. And instead of taking that knowledge on board, they're like, nah, fuck off. We don't want to. And so, because they're aware that any rocking of the boat could capsize the thing. And that's, I think, what they're scared of. And they need to accept that fear, admit it, and just say, you know what, at least with the NRL coming over, it's a rugby league entity coming over. So, of course, they've got rugby league interests at heart. Like, unlike IMG, who's just some corporate entity coming over, or, you know, Rupert Murdoch as a pay TV giant coming over, the NRL is different. They're one of you. They're coming over to help. And it doesn't matter how you want to frame it or how you want to look at it. The NRL helping English Rugby League helps the NRL. Okay? Anytime that you can make, you know, a game have two elite competitions around the world, doesn't have to be same standard of play, but you got two elite ones. If people can't get into the NRL, they've got the Super League as a backup one they can go to. If you can have two performing really, really highly, there's more pathways for more players, Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere. The potential to make the game have constant evolution and constant improvement of players is there for the taking. And at the moment, the Northern Hemisphere side is not pulling their weight and haven't been for a while. And the Southern Hemisphere side realises that. We've seen this in rugby union. The demise of Australian rugby union as a competitive nation rugby union has meant that New Zealand is now struggling to find a good opponent who's on their doorstep.
And let me tell you, New Zealand rugby union is freaking out at the moment because their finances are fucked.
They don't have a competitive neighbour next to them who they compete with anymore. So they've got to go further and further to find competition. And other teams have got to do the same. As soon as you start making that pathway and that group smaller and smaller, you run into financial hardship. And we're seeing that firsthand in the rival code, right? And I think that Australia is fully aware that that could potentially happen here. That's why they spent so much time and money helping out New Zealand, trying to get the Pacific Islands playing more footy, introducing, you know, the PNG into the NRL. That sort of stuff is all about making sure that this region that we play in isn't just about helping the NRL, but helping international football where we are, so that we've constantly got competitive football at every level. And England has been lacking that since, you know, the 1970s, really. That's when the French Rugby League started to drop off a bit. And it dropped off pretty heavily into the 80s. And ever since then, they've started to drop off a little bit as well. You'll probably find there's a close correlation between the drop-off in French Rugby League and the drop-off in the English one. It won't be identical, but it'll follow a similar trend. And I'm talking on an international stage.
Yeah.
You'd need to have neighbours who are strong internationally. And Australia needs to have strong neighbours from across the pond, and well, not just across the pond, other side of the world. Because we can play New Zealand every year if we want to. People get bored of it. That's why we don't do it all the time anymore. We want to be able to play competitive test matches against England. Yeah, we like beating England, but you know what? If it's competitive, more people will tune in to watch it. Everyone makes money. That's what we need. And we can't get that at the moment because who's going to give us competition from the Northern Hemisphere on a regular basis? Even if we lose the occasional test series, that's fucking great for down here because it means we've got to get better.
Yeah.
And that's not happening anymore.
And look, Nick, from 2028, the NRL is going to be played over 3 different nations, right? That will equal a possible supporter base all up between those nations of over 40 million people. When you add PNG's population to Australia's and New Zealand's, that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, PNG isn't like a normal nation. There's a lot of people that live in rural areas. So we're not going to be able to take advantage of their entire population. But like PNG is the only place in the world where rugby league's the national sport, and they just love it there. So it's different in that regard too.
Yep.
But the NRL is expanding, and it's becoming very much a regional sport. And there's going to be a point where we've expanded all over Australia, and then we've got to look to new areas. And where is it going to be next? Now, the easiest thing for us is to start looking at Asia because it's close to us, and putting teams in Asia and trying to build the television market there. Instead, what the NRL's done is they've said, let's try and go where there is a competition and let's look to invest there. And when they don't want our investment, you got to walk away. And I think that the NRL should walk away because they don't want us there under any circumstances. And they'll say things like, why would you put a team in Birmingham? There's no rugby league there. It's like, we know. You have had 130 plus years to expand to fucking Birmingham, and you didn't even do that. And then they say we're the problem.
Well, yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I generally think it is just fear. They know they're hanging on to the last few threads.
Yeah.
And it's I understand why they feel that way, but at the same time, when the help is a neighbour with the same vested interest as you've got no option. You've got to take it. That's just the way it is. Like, why would you turn it down? That's the bit I don't get. Is
it makes no sense, does it?
I can understand if it was like, rugby union coming over and saying, here, we're going to give you a ton of money to help you out, because you go, that's a wolf in sheep's clothing. But that's not what this is. This is your longest running ally to the English Rugby League, is the Australian Rugby League. Longest running ally.
With the giant bag of our own money.
Yeah.
That is ours. It's not loan.
I mean, let's look at it this way.
Ours.
What has Australian Rugby League done directly, intentionally, that was negative to English Rugby League? What have we done to English Rugby League to make them go, no, we don't trust them, we're not going to take their help? And the answer is we just got better at it than them.
You know what? You're right.
That's all it is.
You're right. That's all it is.
And that's what I was asking before. Like, do you think it's just they just don't like it because it's Australia offering the money? What if it was New Zealand Rugby League coming over saying, oh, we're going to give you this ton of money? They'd probably say yes.
Well, yeah, and look, they have complete contempt for New Zealand, like a real, like, weird level of contempt for New Zealand. And so I think that they wouldn't be worried about New Zealand administrators coming in because they would think so little of them, Yeah.
They wouldn't think so little of them if they came over with a bunch of money from the NRL, though. The NRL went over to New Zealand Rugby League and says, can you go over to England with this several millions of dollars to say, we're going to give this to you, but this is what we want you to do. And just have the New Zealand Rugby League as like the middleman. Every time they say, oh, what do we do now? New Zealand Rugby League just brings up the NRL. What do you want us to do? Oh, just go do this. Okay, no worries. Bang them out. Away we go.
You know what? That's not the worst idea in the world, huh?
It would probably work.
So I think if the NRL wants to invest in rugby league, and expand in rugby league, I think that they should spend it on having a second New Zealand team, right?
Yes.
And I've said before, I'd have them in Christchurch, take advantage of that brand new stadium. You've got a team in the North, a team in the South Island.
You can then start working towards, when you do that, a New Zealand origin, which is just another marketing gold mine.
Yeah, even if it's down the track, like that's the long-term goal.
Down the track.
Yeah. On top of that, I would have Magic Weekend. I'd have a Magic Weekend where it's rugby leagues play, all the NRL teams play across New Zealand. We just take over New Zealand for a weekend. That's one thing I would do. If we did that, rugby union over there would freak the fuck out, and they're already freaking out a little bit over how things are going for them.
Well, a lot of that's because they're aware too that they're starting to lose the Pacific Islands, who they constantly always had on their side.
And like where in Australia they've got this financial juggernaut that is talking about spending $250 million somewhere to develop the game further, and they're thinking, holy shit, I hope they don't look at us.
Yes.
Because if we had to spend $50 million a year on rugby league in New Zealand to develop it, to fix their junior system, to get them a national competition of their own with an expansion NRL club, like if we focused in that area, that's horrifying for them,
Absolutely.
So I found it all fascinating to just see the vitriol against Australian Rugby League trying to help English Rugby League out. And I think that we should listen to them. I really do. I think we should listen to what they're saying. And what they're saying is go away. And I think we should take that on board.
Give them what they want.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's enough England for this episode. I don't think we need any more of that.
No.
Let's get into what really matters, and that's the NRL.
Yes. Very successful competition. Doesn't need outside help.
That's exactly right. Let's look at this week's game. Starting on Thursday, we've got the Tigers versus the Raiders. Canberra have won 16 of their last 19 games against the Tigers. However, the Tigers have won 7 of their last 10 games at Leichhardt. Who are you going with on this one?
I'm going for the West Tigers. I know they lost on the weekend. It was a really good game. I feel like it was maybe a loss they needed.
I was about to say exactly the same thing.
Yeah, they were going very good. They were going very, very good. But, that coming up against the Premiers, and the Premiers were weakened, and they showed why they're the Premiers. And I just think that sometimes you need a little bit of a reset, and you need to remember that there are things to work on, and I think that will have done them well. So I think that they will beat the Raiders, who doesn't matter how many resets the Raiders get, they just don't take any of it on board because they were fucked by the ref or the conditions or the tides or the
moon landing.
Yeah, the blockade that's happening in the Middle East. There's always something.
Well, the Strait of Hormuz dramas would impact the Raiders quite significantly.
It would definitely.
Next, we have the Cowboys versus the Sharks. Cronulla have won 18 of their last 22 games against the Cowboys, with 9 of their last 12 games played in Queensland since round 11, 2022.
Wow.
So home away from home.
Yeah, I've tipped the Sharks in this one. I think that what we saw out of the Cowboys last weekend was more closer to what they actually are.
Yeah. And the Sharks just had they're one of those games where a few things just went wrong every now and then. Not for the whole match, but that was enough to turn it against them. Sorry, not last weekend, the weekend before. They had the bye last week. That game against the Roosters. Because they hung on in that one for over an hour. And then they just fell off the wagon for the last 15, 20 minutes. Having a week off and getting a boot in the date over that should be enough to get them back on track, I'd imagine.
It should be, yeah.
Next, the Broncos versus the Dogs. Brisbane have won 15 of their last 21 games against the Bulldogs since 2013. And Canterbury have won just 8 of 31 games at Suncorp Stadium since 2005.
I feel like this is a horrible nightmare matchup for the Bulldogs because they probably would have liked a much lower profile match after that loss last weekend to the Eels. We've seen that they can step up and play great when they're under pressure, as they did against the Panthers. But I just feel as though the Broncos probably got a lot out of winning that game last weekend.
They They got a ton out of that, even though they're coming to this game and they're going to be down even more cattle because Haas went off with an injury. And Jesse Arthur's also had an injury as well. They're filling fullback. So I believe they've got a few coming back. I haven't had a look at the squad yet, but they will take a huge amount of confidence from beating not just your usual West Tigers bottom of the ladder side, a confident West Tigers playing good football side at home. So they'll take a huge amount from that victory. And yeah, I think the Broncos will do this one comfortably, and which is odd because the market is saying that the Bulldogs are favourites for this. So, Freaky, put one of your 17 houses on the Broncos here, I reckon.
It's I'm not a politician. I got a feeling the Broncos will win this one. It'll be a massive crowd up there at Suncorp, and I think Cameron Ciraldo, he looked so tired last weekend, didn't you think?
He's getting very sleepy.
So sleepy.
Yeah, he's going to need some Monster.
It must be so weird to be feel good watching them games and just the trying to hold back the instant feeling of just need to sack Ciraldo immediately because that's what he wants to do so bad.
That's why the Dragons should have hired him at the start of the year, just to get that urge out of him. And the Bulldogs should have allowed it. Said, no, just go over there and sack a few people, come back and just get it out of his system and let's just work on footy again.
Just show the world that you're right, Phil.
Yeah.
Just show everyone that you're right.
And that would have been perfect because he could have been absolutely 100% right to sack everyone at the Dragons.
Yeah, exactly.
Scratches that itch.
Yeah.
It comes back to the Bulldogs and goes, right, let's get back to footy. I feel purged. I feel good. I've done good for the rugby league community. Speaking of the Dragons, they're next and they're against the Roosters. The Roosters have won 21 of their last 26 games against the Dragons. Now, here's an interesting stat that may not make sense. This Dragons side became the 48th team since 1908 to lose at least 11 straight games. On 8 of those 47 occasions beforehand, the Roosters were the team that broke those losing streaks, which is more than anybody else. So they're the team that these teams ended their losing streaks against.
That's so weird.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's 8 is 4 more than the next most consistently streak beaten side.
Look, if the Dragons win this game, rugby league's drunk.
Yeah, I agree.
So I just cannot imagine that the Roosters are going to lose to this Dragons team. I've tipped the Roosters. I can't imagine it. But we've already had about 5 games like that this year already.
We have, yeah. And it doesn't feel like that's going to be the last of it. So, yeah. How much are you going to tip the Roosters to win by?
I think I put them in for 14 to win by 14.
Okay. I'm going to put them down to win by 60.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that seems reasonable.
Isn't it cool that the NRL competition, right, where you can look at a game like this and be like, Roosters to win by 60. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, that's
not ridiculous, right? But we're also sitting here saying, yeah, imagine if the Dragons won it though. They might win it. It's pretty cool. The NRL's a pretty good place.
It is very true. Right, we're down to the last 4 games. So we've got the Warriors versus Dolphins on Anzac Day, the traditional clash.
Yeah. First of all, it's nice to see the Warriors being allowed to play in New Zealand on Anzac Day.
I 100% agree with that. I can't believe that this has been something that is not ironclad locked in on the draw every year.
Yeah, it's just insane, completely insane.
Yeah.
I obviously tipping the Warriors in this one. They're looking good this year. I like everything I see out of the Warriors. I think they need to get rid of Charles Nickel-Klogstad, though. He's either making terrible mistakes or he's injured, and it just happens in every single game.
This week he's injured.
Yeah, so and they don't need that unreliability in their team when they're playing such solid football. And I just think that they'll be better off without him in the side.
Stats-wise, they're a bit mixed for the Warriors. So the Warriors have won just 3 of their 16 games played on Anzac Day. However, the Warriors have won 43 of their last 68 games played in New Zealand against Queensland-based sides.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going Warriors on this one. Next, have a guess on this one. Melbourne versus South. We just haven't been convinced with anything South have done yet, even though they're sitting 4th on the ladder and playing good footy.
Yeah.
You just go, and Melbourne, you go, they've lost so many games in a row. You're going, they like the winners around the corner. So you're like, and even still, they're sitting 15th on a losing streak, and they are the favourites for this.
Yeah, look, I've tipped the Storm. It might be Stockholm syndrome though. I don't know. The Rabbitohs just, there are times where you watch them and you're like, oh, they're going great. And other times where you watch them and you're like, they are not interested in playing football at all. And that inconsistency in their performances is crazy because it can happen like from 5 minutes to 5 minutes in a game where you'll be like, oh, they look amazing. And then 5 minutes later, you're like,
what happened?
They should have just they should have forfeited this game, these bloody lazy bastards. So, I'm just going with the Storm, you know.
Well, history is heavily in Storm's favour. They've won 36 of their 43 games against South. That's everything. And South have lost all 20 games that they've ever played in Victoria, which have all been against the Storm.
Sounds worse than it is.
Next up, we've got the Knights versus Penrith. What stats have we got here for this one? Penrith have won 9 of their last 10 games played in Newcastle since 2014. The Knights have scored 178 points in 7 games this year. It took them their first 13 games to get to the same point last year.
Wow. Someone signed their former coach up as a fucking attacking coach. That'd be a great idea.
Brilliant idea. Genius. I'm going with Penrith on this one, and yes. I think they might have a bit of a return to their form, and I wouldn't like to be a Knights side this week.
The Knights, if they play at their best, will be difficult for the Panthers to beat, but the Panthers should beat them. If they fall back to their old habits, and it's so easy to do, and this is why it's so bad to like bottom out as a club. If they go in that direction, then the Panthers could flog them. I tend to think that it's going to be a moderate performance by the Panthers. They'll get the win. It'll be just one of those games where it's like it doesn't reach any great heights, but the Panthers sort of just get the win. That's how I think this game will go.
All right, and the last game of the round is Manly versus Parramatta. Manly have won 28 of 39 games against the Eels of Brookvale, and that goes back to 1980.
Wow.
And despite winning 5 of their last 9 games, Parramatta has conceded 30 points per game in that same period.
I mean, I've tipped the Seagulls, but like, how can you know with these two teams, really?
I'm picking Parramatta.
Yeah.
Purely because Tom Trbojevic has now finally succumbed to an injury.
Yep.
It took a while, but it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Mitch Moses is just he's an immortal in waiting, if not one already. So
this is the type of...
He'll steer this team to a massive victory, and they'll win the grand final off the back of this match.
Yeah. This is a typical Mitch Moses match. Doesn't mean anything. And did you see him fucking fist pump in the air after converting the last goal of the match against the Bulldogs in a flogging? He was pumping his fist and he was like, yeah. It's like, all right, Iceman, calm down.
Like a chill pill fella. Wasn't he doing that sort of stuff during the game against the Tigers a few weeks before? And then they went on to lose?
Yeah. It's like... it's him and Gutherson. This is their time of year, you know?
It's like, just settle down, maybe learn a lesson or two.
These big wins that they, drag their team to in fucking April. So, yeah, I've gone the Seagulls just because I think that the floor of the Eels is lower than the Sea Eagles, and Kieran Foran has the Sea Eagles playing much better.
Yes, they're playing much straighter too.
Yeah, and much more consistently. And I'm kind of banking on that consistency over what the Eels have shown me so far this year.
Well, I mean, let's have a look. The change in form is remarkable. Mm-hmm. So the first 3 games Manly played this year were all at Brookvale. Mm-hmm. And they lost to Canberra 29-28, lost to Newcastle 36-16, and lost to the Roosters 33-16. Mm-hmm. They've then played 3 games on the road and beat the Dolphins in Redcliffe 52-18. They beat the Dragons in Illawarra 28-18, and then they beat the Cowboys 38-6 in Townsville. Mm. That is an insane change of form.
Yeah. And look, they haven't beaten the best teams in the world, but they've beaten them and beaten them well. And that's all you can ask for. So Parramatta really should be the next team in that list. And that would make it such a crazy start for Foran as a head coach.
Oh, absolutely. So at the moment, he's the only Manly coach who's ever had as of right now, a 100% win percentage.
Have you got a list of the coaches that have a 100% win percentage of all time?
I can get that, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be cool to hear some of the names on that list.
I dare say a lot of them will be interim coaches.
Yeah.
But let's drag
because
this up.
you will know that every single one of them were in that role in a weird situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. All right, there's 10 who have 0 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 6 with 100%.
Okay, so who are the 6?
Ed Fry. So he coached 2 games in. Let me get that. He coached 2 games for South in 1908, which was the finals.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so he won a semi-final and a grand final.
Wow, and then he bowed out.
Job done, fellas. Job done.
Yeah.
Ray Higgs, he had 1 win for Parramatta in 1976. Mm-hmm. Who else we got here? Matt King. He had 1 win for, was it the Cowboys? No, 1 win for the Roosters in 2022.
What was that? What would that have been for? Was that Robinson was sick or something?
That's possible. Let's have a look.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, he must have been ill because it was round 4, and we have Matt King, Jason Riles, and Trent Robertson as coach, which Trent Robertson's there because he was the head coach, but he would have been missing for that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what that was.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, Matt King come out with the win there. Which I'm assuming is Jason Riles on the list as well? No. All right. Ray Price is on here.
Oh, wow.
He had a win for Parramatta in 1985.
Okay.
Against Canberra. And obviously Kieran Foran we mentioned. And Brett White. He had a win for Canberra in 2022 against the Dragons.
I wonder what that one was about. Maybe another illness one.
So Andrew McFadden is listed as the coach as well that you say. Yeah, maybe it could be another illness one. That's a weird one. Yeah, Ricky Stewart was just missing altogether.
Strange.
Maybe Ricky Stewart couldn't find the sideline or his chewing gum, and it was just a horrible. The world was against me. He's gone, no, I can't do this. Too much of the world is against me, more than usual, and so he walked away.
I am going to read into it massively that Ricky Stewart's not there. They win every single game.
Well, I mean, how can you argue with that now? How can you argue with that now?
I just go by the stats, Andrew.
What else can you go by? I mean, that is just raw data and that is raw facts.
So who are the ones that have never won a game and who has the most without winning a game?
Craig Hodges, 10 losses.
Mm-hmm.
They were all for the Titans in 2 in 2017 and 8 in 2019.
Man, that's rough.
Luke Burt, 8 losses. I believe they were all for the Titans as well. Yep, 2019. Who's next on the list? Peter Gentle had 7 losses. That would have been for Brisbane.
North? Oh, Brisbane.
In 2020. Right. So that would have been after Seabold got sacked, I'd imagine.
Okay.
Who else we got here?
Did Peter Gentle ever coach Norths?
No. So I think you're thinking of another bloke. I think his name was Gentles.
Okay.
Similar name, but I think it had an S on the end.
Okay. Yeah, because for some reason the meat in my head immediately connected him to Norths. I don't know why.
Yeah. There was it Ken Gentles? I can't remember. Let me see if it comes up in here. Yeah, Ken Gentle. He was a coach for... Yeah, man, he didn't have a great record either. 6 wins from 48 games.
When was that?
1984, 1985 at West.
Hmm.
And who else did we have on here? Let me get back to the top of the list here. Let's see. So we did... Harold Johnson. Was that not a character from Neighbours?
It does seem like a Neighbours character.
He coached the first 5 games for Manly in 1947, and I assume he got the boot after that because they lost all of them.
Wow.
Lost 15-13 against West, 33-17 against Newtown, 15-13 against South, 61-11 against the Dragons, and then 26-8 against East. And they went, man, that's it. You've done too much.
That's enough. Time to move on.
Also, there was Ross Warner with 4, Andrew Juneman with 3, Tony Iro, Terry Madison with 2, and Ben Gardner, Bill Sullivan both with 1.
Far out, eh?
There you go.
Just all funny circumstances, you know?
All sorts of weird ones.
Mm. If we got an update, can we do, while you've got the list of coaches, can we do an updated list of the top winning percentages with let's say 50 games?
With 50 games?
Yeah, and we'll do the top 5, just see who they are.
All right.
Just to update.
Okay, so...
With at least 50 games.
With at least 50 games. Okay, number 1. Did you want to guess? You just want me to read them out?
Oh, I can guess. Number 1, Craig Bellamy.
No.
No, 50 games? Who is it?
He is 3rd on the list.
Oh, wow. It couldn't be Ivan Cleary by now.
No. Number 1 is Dally Messenger.
Oh, wow.
46 wins, 4 draws, 9 losses, 78% win rate from 59 games.
I would never have got that.
Second from
he's in the top 100 Roosters players of all time, by the way.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Second from the same period is Howard Hallett, had 41 wins from 54 games with 75.9% success.
Wow.
Craig Bellamy is 3rd with 69.1% success from 614 games.
Nice.
Next is Norm Proven, 68.5% from 181 games. Jack Fitzgerald, 66.3% from 80 games. Then Bob Fulton, 64.4% from 405. Jeff Smith, same percentage from 59 games. Charlie Lynch, 64.1% from 181 games. Mal Riley, 63.3% from 98 games. Then we're down to, let's see, surprised I haven't seen Cleary yet. Where is his time at the Tigers might have ruined him. No, I haven't missed him.
Phrases I've heard 1,000 times on this podcast.
Yes, he's a bit further down the list. Trent Robertson is next at 62.4, followed by Arthur Halloway, 62.2, who is similar to Jack Gibson on win percentage. That's why Halloway should be an immortal. Don't get me started. Jim Craig, 62.1% from 95. Athol Smith, 61.7 from 60. Craig Fitzgibbon, 61.6 from 112 games.
Wow.
Ray Norman, 61% from 59 games. Wayne Bennett, 60.8% from 967.
Jesus.
Then we go down to, who else is in the 60%?
It's just a shame that Wayne Bennett was the reason that England lost all those games a few years ago.
What would he know about coaching?
Nothing. You know what? Arrogant.
Also in 60%, I'll just read out the names that go down to Cleary. So we've got Ray Ritchie, Arthur Folwell, Peter Louis, Phil Gould.
Peter Louis would have coached Ivan Cleary.
Yes. Arthur Hennessy, Ken Kearney, Norm Robinson, Graham Langlands, Jeff Tuvey, Neville Smith, Ross McKinnon, Charles Fraser, Bernie Purcell, and then Ivan Cleary is there at 57.4% from 486 games.
That is such a cool list. That is such an amazing list. I would never have got most of those names. That's so cool.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Even just below Ivan Cleary, you've got Ron Willey, Ken Arthurson, Chris Anderson, Clive Churchill, Frank Bumper Farrell, Roy Masters, Jack Rayner, Chris McKivitt, Steve Folks, Terry Fernley, Warren Ryan, Frank Burge. All of those great coaches seem to be all in this big group between, like the ones that we all know as being successful great coaches.
Yeah.
They're in this group between about 61% and 54%.
Isn't that interesting?
It's fascinating.
Like I was thinking that, when you think of the great coaches of all time, and there's like Bellamy's an outlier in some ways for modern coaches in his win percentage, especially for how long he's been coaching,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like they're all there in a similar area in terms of their win percentage, and it's just really, it's so cool. I guess what it really shows is it shows that if you're a good coach, you've been around for a certain amount of time, and if you've been around for a certain amount of time, you've gone through a period of success, but you've also gone through a period where you've had to rebuild as well.
That's right, yeah.
And the only person that really hasn't had to do that to that sort of extent has been Bellamy, because he's been able to keep the Storm going at a high level through just about his entire time there.
Yes.
So, and like, I'm not saying that as like, oh, well, he didn't have to do it. It's like, that's how good he's been in that role.
Well, the thing, he started out with, he's probably gone through two generations of players. The ones he started with, the ones he had for the bulk of his career, and the ones he has now.
Well, you can, like, you could probably just do it, and the Storm are kind of unique in this way, just by fullbacks he's probably had to coach. Like, I would guess, like, he would have had Matt Guy. Yeah, I'm guessing he was the fullback.
Yeah.
And mate, I think he probably just missed Robbie Ross. But, he had an entire career of Billy Slater.
Mm-hmm. That's not bad.
Yeah, and then Pappenhausen after him.
Yeah, and then far longer, it's like he hasn't missed a beat there. And he's had the same thing with the hookers. Like, he's had Cameron Smith most of his career, and then just had Harry Grant after it.
Yeah, really, really interesting when you look at it that way,
Who do you reckon the two worst coaches are by win percentage who have coached at least 100 games?
Two worst for 100 games. Yeah. Oh man, that's really difficult.
One is not that difficult.
Seabold?
No, not Seabold.
Oh, fucking Nathan Brown.
Not Nathan Brown.
No way.
Ron Hilditch is the lowest.
Oh, really?
He had 32 wins from 109 games at 29.4%. And the next one was Trent Barrett.
Oh, really?
31.4%. He's just behind Craig Coleman.
Then, to be fair to Craig Coleman, he had probably the worst circumstances to be a coach.
Yes. Still better than Barrett.
Yeah.
With those circumstances.
Yeah, like no money. Just terrible circumstances.
Who else was better than Trent Barrett? Terry Lamb?
Now you're becoming cruel, Andrew. Paul Langmack. Did Langmack get to 100 games as coach?
Tom Radonicus?
Tom Rudonic, yeah. Coached one of the worst teams of all time.
Benji Marshall's currently at 34.5%. His is rising fast.
Yep.
Josh Hannay's at 35%.
All right.
Michael Potter, 35%. Stephen Kearney, 35.5% after 121 games.
That feels right.
Yeah, that's your marker.
Yeah. That like Benji Marshall's, you look at that and you're like, oh, that will change in time.
You know what the marker is?
What?
36.4%, because that's where Alan Jones is.
Yeah.
That.
How many games did he coach?
66 long.
Oh my God.
Long fucking games.
Fuck. I thought it would have been like a season and a half, maybe.
Mate, that was 66 games of generational change for the worst.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
He might have killed the Tigers, huh?
Yes.
That was basically took over a pretty good team, and like after that was it.
Yeah, he took over a team that had been in 2 grand finals and then made the finals in 1990. And then he turned out 36.4% win rate. Wayne Pearce replaced him and had 37%. And he oversaw a team that declined so fast they ended up merging with the West Tigers, and he ran that team.
If you think about this. The team when Alan Jones took over and the team when Pearce took over. Like Pearce took over garbage. Right?
Yep.
Jones took over a team that really should have been a top team for at least another 3 years.
Yeah. He had the forward pack.
Yeah.
That was solid. But he pissed off so many of the other players in the side that they lost Gary Jack and Gary Freeman. Like, why would you do that?
No, yeah. Like, what the fuck, man? Oh, man, that's crazy. You know what? That'd be a cool episode to do of, like, coaches who took something like Seabold's a pretty good example in terms of, like, the team he took over at the Broncos was absolutely stacked with young talent.
Ridiculous.
Like, to the point where so many of them left and they were so shattered and stuff that even when he left, they still managed to make a grand final and then win one a couple of years later.
Yes.
He had the absolute creme de la creme of that team, and he took them to the wooden spoon.
And got rehired at another club.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Fuck.
Crazy.
See, that's who the Dragons should get as their next coach.
Oh, like I'd cry if they did. I'd literally cry.
Yeah,
for the Dragons fans.
That wouldn't be a laughing matter. That'd just be a thing where you go, someone needs to be shot for that.
Yeah, that would be disgusting.
On this list, Royce Simmons is at 40.9%, just below Nathan Brown at 41.1%.
Yeah, Royce Simmons, he coached the Panthers in a rough period too, where they were coming out of the Super League war in not a real good place in terms of just, the lineup was terrible. And then he won a wooden spoon in a year where that Panthers team was atrocious.
Yeah.
Like really, I remember watching that season.
The rules also had changed quickly in a way that certainly didn't favour them either.
No.
And the rules were switching around fast then too.
Yeah. And oh man, some of the names that we had in our team in that wooden spoon season, like you just knew, like they were, I don't even know if they were reserve grade players. Some of them were probably local A grade players. But he also brought through the young dudes that ended up winning the premiership.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that season and those young dudes stood out too. So yeah.
Yeah, Adam O'Brien, 42.8%. Brad Fittler, 43.1%.
Yeah.
Jason Taylor, 43.6%. Some of these feel like they're in the wrong spot. But there you go.
Yeah.
We could look at this list for a long
time.
Yeah.
This feels like one of those things where, like, 2 hours later after the podcast, we'd be like, "Oh, wow!"
Yeah, it's like
let's go through his entire career.
We're just looking at it going, "Oh, hang on, we're still recording." People are going to be listening to this, going, "Why do I keep tuning into this fucking drama?"
Start doing a breakdown of Jason Taylor's coaching career.
And start looking at the halfbacks he chose and the ones he ruined, and then as soon as you go from there, you go into, let's look at all the halfbacks that Ricky Stewart ruined.
I really want to. He's great at developing young players. Well, why do they lose? Why does Ricky Stewart, if he's so good at developing players, why have they not won anything?
This is true. Hey, look, there's a bit of breaking news that has come in about the Dragons. I've just seen this on Twitter. It's not breaking, it was a few hours ago. Former Dragon Ben Cray is set to be promoted from Chief Operating Officer to replace Ben Haran as General Manager of Football. Rumours suggesting that the Dragons were chasing Shane Richardson are incorrect, and they will be backing Cray instead to turn the club around.
They're so fucking stupid. They're just going to do the same fucking thing they've kept doing for so long, and then they're going to wonder why it's not working. We need one of our guys. You don't understand. He did a course at TAFE. Fuck.
Well, on that note, we should just leave it there.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I feel sorry for Dragons fans. As I said the other day, it sucks that that guy that has the Save Our Saints banner has to take that to so many fucking games and has had to do it for like 20 fucking years.
Yeah, it's sad that he has to dedicate part of his residence to having that there, knowing that he can't throw it out. He can't put it in hard rubbish. It has to stay there because it's always going to have a purpose.
And he gets so much, like his wife can't even say, you haven't taken, it's like, I've got to bring it back out. It's been 3 months.
You know what's going to be, what'll be sadder is that it gets so much airtime, he starts getting sponsors on it.
I wonder how many, I wonder if you talk to him and he'd be like, I've had to, it's got so much use, I've had to remake it like 6 times. And whenever you see it in the crowd, you're like, yeah, they really do have to do something to save the Saints. Like, you don't ever see it and be like, oh, what are you doing, man? Come on. You're like, every time you see it, you're like, they're at that point.
This thing, I know I don't have to say this, but I want to make it clear, like, as much as we both are obvious supporters of our respective clubs, we are both also stronger fans of the game as a whole. And you do accept that there will be times where, or every year, there's going to be one team that's just going to come last. Okay. But you want them to come last because they weren't good enough on the field. You don't want them to come last and be dreadful because some bloke in a chair is just abysmal at his fucking job. Because that just means that the fans can't get any sort of hope or anything out of that situation at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if your team's coming last, if you're going through a bunch of players turning over because they've retired, they're getting on a bit, and you're bringing through a bunch of juniors. You can see the juniors are developing and getting better. You go, you know what? We'll take the losses. They're improving. It's fine. It's going to get better. But when your team is constantly hampered by atrocious administration or atrocious coaching, or in the Dragons' case, both, there's no hope for anybody in that situation. And that's what we don't want to see. We want to see the game and all clubs advancing. And that's not happening with the Dragons.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, poor old Dragons fans, they're watching these games, they're getting flogged in them. And meanwhile, their coach is on the sideline doing weird fucking facial tics and shit like that. And you're like, what chance does this team have? And then they get rid of him and they bring back Dean Young and then they promote another former player up. And it's like, I just can't believe that you would have any ownership of a team as a private owner and look at this shit and be like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah.
Terrible.
It is terrible. And we don't like seeing that. That's why, several years ago we did a very in-depth rant about, was it Paul McGregor and how poor he was.
Yep.
We got rid of him for you, and we can happily say that the Dragons have listened to us again. So next time, Dragons fans, you need some change, just come to us.
Yeah,
we are the change that you need.
We will get the job done, but to be fair, it's just going to get worse.
At this stage, yeah.
Can you imagine what Dragons fans would feel like if they had a Paul McGregor right now? If they had that level of success, they'd be like, you know what? This isn't too bad.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. He had that win percentage that was, yeah, like we know we could be doing better, but at least we're not last.
Mm.
And so it was enough to sort of, he'd bring through one or two juniors every year. You're like, yeah, okay, he's doing enough here and there. And you go, okay, he's doing enough to just keep the masses quiet for long enough. Eventually they're going to come for him, but he's going to get several years of head coaching money out of it. Flanagan was just so poor, they're just gone, nah. Nah.
Who is a Paul McGregor adjacent? Todd Payton, maybe?
Ooh, Payton's a good shout. That's a very good one.
It's probably him, eh? Just like being there for so long, they're not really going anywhere.
Would you say Ricky Stewart?
You know what? I was thinking Ricky Stewart, but like
the win percentage is probably a little bit higher for Ricky Stewart.
Yep. And they won the minor premiership last year with the weakest draw in the history of the game.
Strongest, hardest, most difficult, because they had to travel the most. Remember, they walk to every game.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they walk on their knuckles. Like, not hands. They use their knuckles. They need to make sure it hurts the most. Sometimes they walk
uphill both ways.
Absolutely. And snowing. Snowing in 40 degrees in both directions.
Yep.
And sometimes they have to walk on their foreheads. Horrible.
They did lose a grand final. That's seen as an achievement in Canberra.
That's true.
But to be fair, that's the first grand final that they've been in since 1994.
Yes.
And those are the only two grand finals where they were salary cap compliant.
Thank you for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's right. And another one, they obviously had some significant timely assistance from bad refereeing.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best referee ever. We should get more like him. We're going, yeah. How about we get some that read the rule book? That'd be helpful.
Take a great team to overcome a salary cap breaking team in the early fucking 90s, wouldn't it?
It would. Although I will say this, I'm glad they didn't have the salary cap fully in place in 1989, because the other team in the grand final that year wouldn't have been under either. Not in the fucking slightest of chances. No.
Man, I'm still trying to get over the team that fucking Wayne Pearce took over.
Yeah.
That was so bad. They were gone. They had nothing left. He was like a salvage job coach.
Well, yeah.
He was like, no one else will take this job because the club is so fucked, coach.
And they needed someone who would do it for the love of it more than anything else and on the cheap.
Yeah.
And that's what he gave them. But let's have a quick look, because 1994 was Balmain. They finished dead last. It was their fourth ever wooden spoon. They only ever won
let's look at the team.
They had 4 wins and 18 losses that year. They had David Baysari, John Bentley, Greg Burke, Tim Brasher, 23-year-old Tim Brasher, played every game. Michael Brown, Paul Buchanan, Bernard Carroll, Des Clark, Richie Connell, Jason Darcy, Steve Edmed, underrated second rower. Morven Edwards, Ben Elias, John Elias, Damien Ford, Mark Geyer, Michael Gillette, Jeff Hassan, Graham Lyons, Andrew McElwain, Derek McVeigh. Yes, it's a long list. Martin Masella, Marty Moore, Chris Morecambe, Matt Munro, Michael Neal, Mark O'Neill, Shane Powell, Will Robinson, David Ronson, Shane Russell, Stephen Scale, Jason Sinclair, Paul Stirinen, Jason Small, Hudson Smith, Danny Stapleton, Grant Stewart, Chris Toro, and Nathan Wood. 40 players.
Fuck. Cohesion wasn't big.
No, wasn't very big at all.
Can you bring up the team list from the first season he took over?
Yeah, that was.
No, I mean like fucking
Oh, Alan Jones.
Yeah, Alan Jones.
Oh, 1991.
Because that's what he had. That's what he left behind.
That's right. That's right.
So, and he was there for 66 games.
Yes.
So let's see what he lost in 66 games.
This is almost going to bring tears to my eyes. Mark Affleck, David Anderson, David Baysari, Tim Brasher, David Brooks, Michael Brown, Cameron Douglas, George Dumett, Steve Edmed, Ben Elias, John Elias, Gary Freeman, James Grant, Craig Izzard, Gary Jack, Ian McCann, Gary McFarlane, Martin Masella, John Mulverhill, Michael Neal, Steve O'Brien, Shane O'Grady, Matt Parrish, Peter Phillips, Steve Roach, Clint Robinson, Will Robinson, Jason Sinclair, Wayne Singh, Paul Siren, and Craig Sloan, Brian Smith, Perry Smith, Paul Upfield. So
he'd already started making changes.
Yes, so there were some players who'd already left before that season started. But yeah, it was still a solid side for for the time. When you look at you look at the top players they had there, like obviously Gary Jack, Tim Brasher, James Grant. He was a former Wallaby when he came across, and he's still in his 20s, so he's still a good player. Steve O'Brien played for the Bulldogs in the 80s and the Tigers also at the end of the 80s, start of the 90s. Gary Freeman was still there. You still had a insane front row of Steve Roach, Ben Elias, Steve Edmed. Paul Siren is still in the second row.
But Brad Izzard, I couldn't remember him playing for the Tigers.
No, Craig Izzard, his brother.
Oh, Craig Izzard, yeah. But
they lost Bruce Maguire, who went over to the Bulldogs and played Test football that year. You go, fuck. How could you? Wayne Pearce retired at the end of 1990. And he was only 30, I think, when he retired.
He was young, yeah.
So, yeah, it wasn't a bad side. It was competitive, had a very, very good spine. And good front row, which those days, the spine and the front row were the things that got you across the line. And yeah, these were still strong. And then they started the season poor.
You know what they needed was a sprinter.
I mean, yeah. They did get him. What was his nickname?
Oh, I can't remember.
I think it was something like the White Flash or something like that.
Oh, what was it?
His name was Darren Clark.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times. Fucking memories. He scored 3 tries in reserve grade that year, and that was it.
Yeah.
Anyways, on that cheery note, somehow we've managed to find something more depressing than the Dragon situation, and that is talking about Alan Jones's tenure as a coach. Because I tell you what, that is the worst thing that ever happened to the game of rugby league.
Yep. But at least Alan Jones went on to redacted. Very heavily redacted.
Yes. All right, well, let's put this baby to bed.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to check us out on all of the socials. Please send Freaky an email.
Yeah, at podcast@leaguefreak.com.
That would be
Send
fantastic.
it through. Ask us anything. Talk about whatever you want to. Have a rant about your team.
Yeah.
Just whatever.
Tell us where you think we're wrong. Obviously, you'll be wrong, but, do that.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, we will destroy you.
Yeah.
But, send us emails about whatever. You can even slag off Paul Gallen like Glenn does.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we both love the guy, but, I don't know what Glenn's problem is with him.
Greatest natural athlete I've ever seen.
There'll never be another.
No way.
No, there should be. Is another level above immortal.
Yeah.
It'd have to be God. There's no other word around it. There you go. Rugby League's first God, Paul Gallen. As per, that was League Freak's opinion. He said it. His words.
Just put words into my mouth.